Chapter 8 The Great Robbery at Badr. The Muslims had sworn to support Muhammad in his war against the Quraysh, yet the Quraysh were making no attempt to fight them. Muhammad realized that if he wanted to fight the Quraysh, he would have to start the war himself. Muhammad knew that he could reduce Mecca to poverty by attacking its trade. He decided to commit highway robberies against the Quraysh merchant caravans. 7 times he sent out a party of Muslim robbers with instructions to attack the camels and steal the merchandise. The first raid was a spectacular miscalculation. The Muslims had to retreat when they realized the Quraysh outnumbered them 10-1. On 4 subsequent raids, they lost the desert trail and failed to locate the caravan. On another raid, they shot arrows at the Quraysh, who did not fight back, but they lost their nerve over robbing the caravan when they saw that they were once again outnumbered. A Quraysh man retaliated by raiding the outskirts of Medina and stealing some Muslim camels, but he was a lone operator. The 7th raid was a successful one. 6 Muslims spied a small caravan of 4 Meccan merchants. It was the sacred month when no bloodshed was allowed, but they did not hesitate for long. They waited until the merchants were cooking over their campfire and ambushed them with a volley of arrows. They killed 1 and captured 2 more. The 4th man escaped, but the Muslims herded the load of wine, raisins, and leather goods back to Medina. Gabriel told Muhammad that the murder of the merchant had been justified because the Quraysh had committed the even worse crime of driving the Muslims out of the Kaaba. While Allah did not allow random killing, He specifically ordered attacks on the Quraysh, for they deserved it. Kill them wherever you find them, and drive them out from whence they drove you out, and persecution is severer than slaughter, and fight them until there is no persecution, and religion should be only for Allah. Fighting is enjoined on you, and it is an object of dislike to you, and it may be that you dislike a thing while it is good for you, and it may be that you love a thing while it is evil for you, and Allah knows while you do not know. Muhammad then accepted 1/5 of the plunder as his share. The rest was divided among the attackers. The Quraysh bought back the 2 prisoners at 4 times the usual rate. The Muslims did not pay blood money for the murdered man. His name had been Amr ibn al-Hadrami. He was the first man in history to be killed in an Islamic jihad. The Jews were very critical of this robbery. They told Muhammad that the Gabriel who was bringing him messages was an enemy who comes only with violence and the shedding of blood. Several events had already created hostility between the Muslims and the Jews. One was the way Muhammad was always asking for money. The Jewish chief Huyay and his friends went around the lions and wolves, warning them not to give them anything. You'll lose your money and you don't know where that money is going. One Jewish teacher said that Allah must be poor because he kept begging. Abu Bakr slapped the teacher's face and threatened to cut off his head. Then a Jewish couple was found guilty of adultery. The Jews punished adultery by whipping the guilty pair, blacking their faces, and parading them around town mounted backwards on donkeys. This couple expected Muhammad to be less strict, so they referred their case to him. Instead, he sentenced them to be stoned. The adulterers were dragged out to the gate of the mosque, where the Muslims hurled rocks at them until they were killed. The Jews' warnings that Muhammad was not a prophet were affecting the comrades. Several of the lions and the wolves now admitted that they still believed in the old Arabian gods and regretted that they had been so quick to accept Muhammad's political leadership. Abdullah, the lion chief, was still a stubborn polytheist, which placed him at the center of the unbelievers. Finally, the Jews made an official statement of their position. A band of their leaders declared to Muhammad, "We cannot see that the Quran is arranged as the Torah is. You have not brought us anything that we recognize. We hold by what we have and we live according to its guidance and the truth. We do not believe in you and we will not follow you." Gabriel sent down his usual prophecies that the Jews would go to hell. Then Muhammad moved the roofed preaching area of the mosque from its north end to its south. Now the direction of bowing down for prayer was no longer northward to Jerusalem, but southward to Mecca.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
It was at this time that Gabriel ruled that the month of Ramadan would be a time of fasting. There could be no eating, drinking, or sex in the daylight hours, although there was no restriction on nighttime indulgence. The fasting had begun when Muhammad had another opportunity to attack the Quraysh. Abu Sufyan, the most powerful merchant in Mecca, was on his way home from Syria with a caravan of merchandise worth 5 million pounds. Since he had fewer than 40 men with him, Muhammad summoned the Muslims and said, "We'll go out to attack that caravan. Perhaps Allah will grant us its wealth as booty." Muhammad, with 300 other armed Muslims, searched around the desert for 9 days, asking everyone they passed about the Quraysh caravan. Eventually they heard that Abu Sufyan was expected in Badr, a green oasis that hosted seasonal trade fairs, so the Muslims approached Badr. They had nearly arrived when they heard unwelcome news. Abu Sufyan had found out that they were trekking his caravan. He had called for the Meccan army to meet him at the frontier and march home with the caravan as an armed guard. Now the Quraysh army was advancing to Badr. Abu Sufyan had escaped. His caravan was already south of the army. The Quraysh army knew this, but they needed to water their camels, so they decided to continue the march to Badr. They numbered 800 men, so they were confident that the Muslims would not try to fight them. However, the Muslims did not want to retreat. They agreed to advance to Badr, even if they had to confront a whole army. Muhammad set up camp at the furthest well. The Muslims built a tank and diverted every stream in the oasis toward their tank. They blocked all the other wells in Badr. By the time the Quraysh army arrived, the only way they could access water was to pass the Muslims. At dawn of the 16th of March, 624, Muhammad posted his men around his water tank. The two sides faced each other, the Quraysh with the sun in their eyes. A Quraysh man approached the tank, determined to take some water, and a Muslim man killed him. At this, the Quraysh fired their arrows. 3 Quraysh leaders demanded single combat. Muhammad sent Ali and 2 other men forward. In the rapid triple duel, the 3 Muslims killed the 3 Quraysh. Then Muhammad threw a handful of pebbles in the direction of the enemy ranks and gave the order, "Deform their faces." The Muslims charged downward to the Quraysh, screaming, "Oh, victor, kill!" and "Won! Won!" They had a strong blast of wind behind them while the Quraysh were running against the gale. For a while Muhammad wove among the ranks, reminding his army of Allah's promise. "Every man who is killed today advancing and not retreating will go to heaven." Then he retired to a palm branch hut, where he was hidden from the enemy view. Sa'ad the wolf chief had built it for him, saying that if they lost a battle, Muhammad could grab a camel and escape to Medina unhurt. Sa'ad, who was a large, solid man, guarded the door. Suddenly they heard neighing and a thunder of hooves that pounded up clouds of dust. Riders in white turbans hurtled down the valley on black and white horses and plunged into the battlefield, lashing whips, chopping off heads, and driving back the Quraysh. It was said that there were 1,000 of them. It seemed to these Meccans that these terrifying reinforcements had popped out of the mountain from nowhere. The Quraysh fled the field and were defeated. The Muslims pursued them up over the hill, killing some and grabbing others as captives. Ali, dressed in 2 male coats, proved very quick with his sword. He said he killed 9 men and helped to kill 5 more. Hummar killed his own uncle. Abu Bakr had a screaming match with his polytheist son, but could not find any chance to kill him. Bilal located the cruel master who had tortured him in Mecca. He called his friends to the ambush, and within minutes they hacked the master and his son to pieces. By this time there were no more men on black and white horses. The Muslims later claimed that their mysterious assistants had been angels. It is more likely that they were local bandits hoping for a share of the plunder. When the battle was over, Muhammad emerged from his hut. He ordered the Muslims not to leave Mr. Stupid alive. They found him lying wounded on the field and cut off his head to present to Muhammad. There were 64 dead Quraysh. Muhammad ordered that their corpses should be thrown into a cesspit. Then he jeered, "You men in the pit, now you know that I was telling the truth about hell." 70 Quraysh prisoners were brought in alive. Among them were 2 men who had harassed Muhammad in Mecca. At his order, they were beheaded. 14 Muslims had also been killed. They were shaheed, and of course they were now in heaven. A shaheed was a Muslim who died during his Islamic duties. Although this word is sometimes translated martyr, it very often referred to a person who had been killed in battle in a war of aggression. Gabriel sent a prophecy about the plunder. All the money, weapons, bags, and camels were brought to a communal pile. The first 1/5 was for Muhammad. The rest was equally divided among all the warriors, except the 4 who were slaves, for whom there was nothing. Muhammad's share included a sword called Beheader. The Badr robbery was a political turning point. It was a humiliating catastrophe for Mecca. 1 week after the battle, Mr. Redface died of measles. The older generation of Quraysh leaders had now been wiped out. Abu Sufyan was quietly accepted as the new high chief of Mecca.
أشهد أن محمدًا رسول.
The Badr robbery was also a moral turning point. This dramatic victory was the proof that the Muslims had Allah's permission to fight his enemies and to impose Islam by the sword. It was the beginning of jihad.